Okay, so today I've decided to do something a bit light and fun. So what I've got here is a starting 18 with only one player allowed from each team. So I've got my starting 18 there, and then additionally for my bench and sub, I've filled them out with what I consider at least to be of, I guess, the greatest draft relevance of the remaining state leaguers who weren't picked up during whether it was the national draft, preseason rookie draft, or the preseason supplemental period. So I think all these guys here are of AFL quality and are good enough to slip into a best 22 for particular teams and in some cases all teams. So there's some players to keep an eye out for if you're interested in watching any of the state leagues this year. So starting off with my team. So in defence, so James Sicily. So for me, I really wanted to make sure that all my spots were filled really cleanly and with really strong pieces. And James Sicily for me is one of the very best general defenders in the comp. So he can intercept, he can use the ball, he can win his one-on-ones. So tick, tick, tick. Excellent choice, I feel. Jacob Wiedering. So for Carlton, there were quite a number of players I considered. I thought about Harry McKay up forward, maybe a Sam Doherty across halfback, maybe it's a Patrick Cripps or Sam Walsh through the midfield. All of them would be very reasonable selections. But look, for me, I decided to settle for Wiedering in the end, where, look, he'll win on his one-on-ones, negate his opponent's influence, but he can intercept and rebound quite a bit as well. So excellent all-rounder and one of the premier key defenders in the comp, obviously. So very happy to have Wiedering in there. And I also thought I'd mention on Carlton before I continue. I think they're a pretty clear top 8 team the way they're playing. Maybe a top 4 chance, but probably not. But I think they're a pretty clear top 8 team. I'd be very surprised if they don't make it. And the reason is simple. Their midfield's outstanding this year. So adding Adam Chera, adding George Hewitt, fantastic additions. You've got the development of Matthew Kennedy, who is now a sensational midfielder. I think he's genuinely a quality third midfielder for them. Patrick Cripps is healthy, looking like one of the best mids in the comp. And then, of course, you've got Sam Walsh, who's now back and he's still finding the footy, so he should still be pretty solid again this year as well. So, having those 5, I think Carlton is set up for a sensational season. I think they're top 8 side. But, moving on. So, Tom Stewart. So, with a Stewart, I consider him probably Geelong's most important player, honestly. And for me, he's by far and away the best general defender in the comp. So, of course, being an elite interceptor, so whether it's contested marks, intercept possessions, he's getting the numbers of the best key defenders, basically, in those categories. One-on-one win rate, one of the very best in the comp, and again, up there with the elite key defenders. And this guy's a general defender, he's not even quite that sort of key position height. And then you've also got the rebounding components with his kicking very good. So Stewart obviously takes a lot of the kick-outs for Geelong. So being an all-rounder and that high quality and really elite in that many categories, look, Stewart for me is an absolute no-brainer and a must-have in defence, I would have said, certainly. Jordan Ridley, exceptional interceptor, so you'll probably notice a bit of a trend and a bit of a theme there, but I really like my intercept marking defenders, so big tick for Ridley, and of course, really good one-on-one, and so much so that he can even play key defence as needed as well. So being able to play that bit taller, again, another tick, and then really quite a capable ball user. So, so definitely someone I'd be very, very happy to have back there, it's fair to say. So Jeremy McGovern, for me, when healthy at least, he's, in my opinion at least, probably the best key defender in the comp. And the reason being is he's the best intercept mark I've ever seen. So just the way he dominates any high balls, anything that gets within his zone, he's just gobbling up. So he's the only key defender I've seen before that you actually have to game plan around and actively avoid kicking the ball anywhere near. So it's just, he's dominant to that extent. So big fan of Jeremy McGovern and everything he does, and he's looking healthy and really good this year for a West Coast team that looks like none of that. So, certainly would be probably my first picked key defender if I could have anyone to win a game today. Certainly on the assumption he's healthy. But from West Coast as well, strong consideration to Nick Nat, exceptional ruckman. I just wanted McGovern as that key defender a little bit more, so just a personal preference thing there. Jack Crisp, so a lot of Collingwood players you could consider, whether it's a Jordan De Goey, you'd probably just put him forward. though obviously exceptional midfielder too. You could have a Darcy Moore down back, maybe it's a Brodie Grundy through the ruck, but yeah, look, for me, I just wanted to go crisp just to have that extra run and drive. He can rotate through the midfield, which will come in handy with obviously all these defenders that I've got on my bench here. And so obviously midfielder this year, but I just like him across halfback. I think that's where he plays his best footy, ultimately, if given the choice and if Collingwood had a better midfield to choose from, ultimately. So personal preference thing there. But yeah, look, I thought crisp just as that, I guess, chemistry fit works quite well with this team. So just to give a bit more variety in defense, just for that, I guess, extra run and drive in that capacity. But then he's also got the ground ball winning, strong over the ball, strong tackler. So just a bit of extra variety, but he can still intercept as well and win his one-on-ones. So that still works there with that theme. So Marcus Bontempelli, look, there's a lot of great dogs, but for me, Bont's the guy. So you could have, whether it's a Bailey Smith out here, you could go an Aaron Norton up forward. Lots of good choices, but for me, Bont, one of the best in the comp. Hard to go past him. Dual position impact player, essentially. You can play him through the midfield. He'll be one of the best in the comp. Put him forward, he's going to have an impact. So for me, it's just a must-have, and you work the rest of the team around him. And I'd say the same of Petrarca as well, where, look, you could have a Max Gawn if you want. You could go whether it's a Clayton Oliver through the midfield, maybe it's a Jake Lever, or maybe it's a Stephen May down back. But when you've got a Petrarca who probably is the best in the comp at the moment, the way he's been playing, both in the finals last year and to open this year, yeah, look, you just have to have him. So best available when you've got guys on this level is my policy. Tuke Miller, Gold Coast best player outright, it's fair to say. And again, what he did second half of last year was just ridiculous. So I had the suspicion coming into the preseason, look, with a healthy Matt Rowell and looking very capable, Miller might not get as much first possession at stoppages, might win a little bit less contested, but yeah, look, that Gold Coast midfield's really solid. Their front half might be lacking that sort of go-to option with Kinghurt, but yeah, look, with Rowell looking really good this year, Anderson improved, healthy wits. Gold Coast midfield will be pretty solid and handle itself pretty well, I think, this year. So they'll be at least competitive for a change, I guess you could say, but they're probably not a top 8 team with that said. But yeah, credit to Miller. So incredible worker, incredible accumulator. Just hard to pass on him. You need him through the midfield. You can have him on the wing, that's fine for the purposes of this team, but you just have him rotating between the spots. This one is probably the one that would probably surprise a lot of people, but Jason Horne-Francis I'm very happy to have in here. So if you've got a fully healthy North Melbourne, you'd probably have a Ben Cunnington through the midfield, to be fair. And if he was a bit younger, you'd probably have a Todd Goldstein through the ruck, and you'd sort of pretty quickly sort of make that selection. And look, across half forward, I'd even say a Taron Thomas is the better footballer. But my comments around Horne-Francis coming into the year were he would be a top 5 player for North Melbourne this year, and I'm sticking to that belief. So just even watching him through the first couple of games, I still believe that'll remain the case. So, and with a Horne-Francis, it's a very deliberate team chemistry move here. So just with the sheer pressure he can apply, he's one of the absolute best in terms of that effort defensively, pressure acts. He absolutely brings it. And if you make his role to really bring that pressure, I think he can be one of the very best in the comp at doing that. And of course, with all the interceptors behind the ball, that works absolutely perfectly into their plans. And of course, with a Horne-Francis, you can get him rotating through the midfield. He'll win it, burst forward. So that's all handy. And look up forward, he's both an aerial threat, ground level threat. He hits the scoreboards. So it's not like he's just there to provide one dimension. He can really do it all and be a very impactful player. Almost like, I guess in the context of this team, something like a younger Isaac Heaney, but with a few different dimensions to his game, I guess you could say, with that added sort of burst and then the extra pressure game to him as well. So exciting player for the future. I think is the rising star this year. He's my early premature pick, if you want to call it that. So, but yeah, very happy with him in there for predominantly chemistry reasons, but yeah, I like the fit. Taylor Walker, so look, we'll have to see how he comes back this year, but certainly, and look, it sounds like he's been working hard and really wants to redeem himself, so he's going to obviously put in on the field to really try and have an impact right away. But what he was doing last year, particularly through the first half, he was the competition's premier key forward. So, yeah, look, given Adelaide don't have necessarily a high-end superstar, and the midfielders don't really compare when you look at some of the other names that I've got through here, look, I think a Walker's a pretty logical pick. So I could have gone, whether it's maybe a Dawson down back, that might have been reasonable. A few others could have been considered, but yeah, Walker as a key forward, I think, is a strong get there. Zach Butters, for me, I think this year he's going to establish himself as a top 5 player in the comp. So my belief is he's better than Wines, and with the midfield minutes, I think he'll pretty comprehensively show that. So obviously hard as anything, but has all the talent under the sun. So, and look, he's not a big boy, not overly strong, but as he gets a little bit stronger, he'll only get better. So very excited for the season Butters will have. So yeah, keep watching him closely. And look, this season, it's a bit like Crisp, who's playing through the midfield. I'm fine with playing Butters out of the position he's technically playing, but yeah, look, obviously having had success across half forward in the past, I'm happy to start him there, and of course he'd rotate through the midfield. So it's a bit like picking the All-Australian team. I don't get too caught up in best positions. It's a case of, if this guy was across half forward, there's no one else who would do a better job that's a pure half forward, if you want to put it that way. So just being one of the very best in the comp. And it'd be the same if I put Petrarca there. Doesn't matter with some of these names. Isaac Heaney, it's likely once Papley's back he'll be playing through the midfield, but obviously the way he started the season as a forward, look, he's playing like a top 5 player in the comp, to be real. So yeah, that's basically Heaney. So yeah, just terrific in both positions. Being that dual position impact player adds so much value. So yeah, and you've got that with Petrarca. You'll get that in the future with a Horne-Francis. Bont does that. So you get that with a lot of the best names. So Heaney for me is a clear number 1 for Sydney, so it's great fitting him in. Noah Bolter. This might be an interesting one for some people, but for me with a Bolter, I believe he's going to prove himself this year, establish himself as Richmond's franchise player. So that was my prediction coming into the season, and that remains my expectation. And what I was seeing in making that, I guess, call, if you want to describe it as that, is I was looking at Noah Bolter's attributes. So I've seen him as a junior, I've seen him as a key forward, it worked and he could do that. But yeah, just having everything he does. So being able to create separation on a level I haven't seen since Tony Lockett. So that's going back to the 90s, folks. So being that incredible on the lead, creating separation that easily, fantastic. Good mark. You've got the ground level just so strong over the ground balls, it's midfielder-esque. So you could put him into a centre bounce and he could win it. So you've got those components. He's got a huge kick. He can kick at 70 metres if he wants to. And then, of course, for his set shots, he's actually converting his set shots as well. So if I could have any key forward in the comp, to whether it's to start a team with or even win with this year, I would actually be picking Noah Bolter. So might be an early call, but I'm happy to make it early in the season. I just think he's going to be that good, and people are going to be surprised to see how good he is. So watch out for that. And look, you do have the optionality for the purposes of a team like this where you can just stick him into the ruck as well, just to play those relieving minutes as needed. But yeah, look, I think he's going to be an incredible key forward. So yeah, watch out for him. Toby Green, for me, is the most influential player for GWS, which makes him the pick. Just so damaging up forward. So you could rotate him through the midfield, and he was a midfielder before he was a forward, and we saw that in his first year at AFL level, and as a junior he was a mid. But obviously he's become such a weapon up forward, so consistent. You want him as a forward predominantly, so has to be in there. And yeah, when you've got someone this good as a forward, you want him in the team. Sean Darcy, and look, there are a few others I considered through the ruck, whether it's a Nick Nat, whether it's a Gawn, whether it's a Grundy, maybe a Rowan Marshall. That'll be candidates for this role depending on, I guess, what you're looking at. But for me, look, I don't think a Fife is going to come back the same player he once was. So, and then you can move down the list for Fremantle, and I'm not necessarily seeing that same level of impact player as certainly Darcy, if he's healthy, was last year. So, yeah, I'm happy to roll with Darcy as my ruckman, but many good options there. So, but I just wanted to maximise, I guess, the value of what I get from that Fremantle player. Lockie Neal, so yeah, look, incredible midfielder, and he's started the season absolutely on fire. So that makes me a bit more confident in making that decision. If it was based on last year's play, I would have gone Dane Zorko. But the way Neal is looking this year, I'm happy to back him in. So incredible midfielder, incredible ball winner, accumulator. Doesn't need to be tall. Just one of those cases. If you don't have to be tall, you don't have to be an athlete. It's just a great footballer. So yeah, happy to have him through my midfield. And then you've got Jack Steele, where you could put him head-to-head against any midfielder in the comp, and he's going to win the matchup, basically. So, yeah, love having Steele in there. And look, I could pivot to a Rowan Marshall, potentially, if I had maybe it's a Brayshaw in mind for Fremantle. But, yeah, look, I'm just going to assume that a Steele improves on, firstly, his first 2 games, which have been below his normal standard. And it's probably a bit like last year with Steele, where he had 2 or 3 games where he just sort of needed to get into the season, and then from there he really took off and had a great year. So yeah, we'll have to see if Steele can do that, but until I have a reason to believe otherwise, given his strong play the last few seasons, well, I'm going to assume Steele gets back to that. So if you're a Supercoach player, look, I wouldn't be trading Steele out. I think he's going to get back to playing good footy and scoring a bunch. So yeah, don't worry about that, but yeah, still one of the better midfielders in the comp, I'd say. I think it's still a top 10 mid for me personally. But moving on to the bench. These are players to, I guess, get interested in and track during the season. So I'd suggest you guys at home make an effort to watch the state leagues this year, because what a lot of people don't recognise is there are state leaguers that are better than a lot of AFL footballers. And we've seen it during the preseason supplemental period. So in years past, you would have just had national draft, preseason draft, rookie draft. Well, this year, guess what you've had? You've had the likes of a Jack Hayes. You've had Nick Martin for Essendon. You've had Paddy McCartan come back, of course, a former number 1 pick, going to Sydney, and he's looking fantastic. So hopefully that's a wake-up call for people at home to recognise that there are state leaguers that get overlooked every year in the draft that are genuine AFL quality and really good footballers at AFL level. So, and my belief with these names on my bench in particular is, look, these guys could step into teams and be best 22 players. So that's my personal evaluation of their talent. So remains to be seen if they make it onto an AFL list, but certainly I strongly advocate each of these names listed here. So Bailey Rogers, so Sandover medalist, best in the waffle last year, which is incredible given there's Hayden Sloth and Jai Bolton, both of whom are AFL caliber. So, and with a Rogers, so wins it through the midfield, good ball user, works hard around the ground. When he's stationed as a forward, so he's a dual position impact player there as well. He's got the marking capabilities, hits the scoreboard, again, good ball use. So he's really that almost, if you want to call it that, Dusty Martin equivalent in the waffle. Not that he's got that same power necessarily, or that same strength. You don't get the don't argues, but look, different package that you get, but the result is equivalent really for that level of play. So, and of course, if he goes up to AFL level, no, you're not getting Dusty, obviously, but you're getting someone where, again, he can be that dual position impact player who can fit into a team seamlessly. So, and he doesn't have to be your number 1, 2, 3 best mid. He can be your 4th best mid and be really good in his midfield minutes, provide meaningful midfield minutes, then go forward and be really good there too. So, yeah, I think he'd be an absolute asset for a team, and I think he's the best state leaguer outside the AFL at this point. Blake Slenslog, if I want a key defender outside the AFL, this is my guy. Just with the way he reads the ball behind the play, it's as good as I've seen. So he reads it as early as a Jeremy McGovern does. So doing that, being a 198, 199, strong, athletic, good kick. So complete package there pretty much. If he was a stronger mark, it would be fully complete, but yeah, he does have those butterfingers overhead sometimes. So that's the only thing I can really say in the slight negative. But yeah, look, he's got an AFL quality game, and Geelong gave up on him far too early as a Cat B rookie because he was rapidly developing year on year. And we saw it again in the waffle last year, just showing that really strong upward trajectory in terms of improvements. So yeah, he's certainly someone I'd be saying is the best key defender outside the AFL. Angus Baker, so going back a number of years in the NEAFL, well, he was going for 30 plus disposals across halfback per game. So high level intercept mark. You've got the kicking capabilities out as well, just that sort of rebound from defense. And then in the VFL last year, well, he was good for 25 plus disposals a game, again, across halfback. And then you've got that sort of 7 to 8 sort of marks per game. So, unlucky not to have gotten an opportunity, and one where, again, if you want that good piece in defense, sign this guy up. He can just, is a plug and play, ultimately, for any team. And Casey Voss. So this is a weird one, and I'm surprised he didn't get picked up last year, because you're looking at the son of Michael Voss. So he's a hard name to miss, and he's shown that year-on-year improvement, but last year was a huge jump forward in the Sandfuls. So, great lockdown defender, can play a role, that's all terrific, but he can rebound a little bit, intercept a little bit. Really good all-round piece, I would say. So can win his own ball if he wants to. So look, he's a solid pick. So he just fits into a team, and if that's what you want, then he can certainly contribute and play that sort of role down back for you if he needs to. So I'd be sort of expecting he probably continues improving this year, and if there's any improvement in him at all, even if he plays the same level of footy, look, he's playing as with all these other guys to an AFL standard. So they're the names to watch there. And then as a sub, I wanted to give some credit to Ronald Fedjo Jr. So just in terms of the speed, agility with ball in hand, you just can't tackle this guy. He's just too quick. And then he's got the skills as well, just precision lace-out skills. So having those attributes, highly developable. Needs to win a bit more of his own footy, find a bit more of it. But if he can do those things, well, I think he can be something like, maybe it's a Lewis Cheddar perhaps, in terms of that outside impact. So another name to watch out for. And funnily enough, with both Bakers and Fedjo Jr., Essendon considered them, and they obviously did very well with Martin. So maybe they're looking at the right players, but maybe just didn't have enough spots to give to all of the good mature ages. So they're certainly some of the names that I like, and guys that would fit in very seamlessly with all these guys and really make them into a complete 22. So for me, there's no weaklings here, for mine at least. Thanks for watching, guys, and if you made it to the end, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for future updates. And in the comment section below, let me know who would be in your starting 18. Are there any particular players that you would be picking rather than the ones I have? I'd be interested to know. But anyway, guys, see you in the next video.